So I've had this thing of absolute beauty for over a month now, and today I'll be giving an owner's review of the 2024 Lexus NX350h. So starting with the exterior design, we can see that the iconic Lexus grille is now fully integrated into the hood with these two lines that sweep all the way across. Makes it look really aggressive, but almost elegant at the same time as well. I also like the hybrid grille. On certain colors, I prefer the blacked out F-Sport grille, but I think this looks really good with the Nori Green Pearl. I also absolutely love the way this entire headlight module looks, particularly with the triple beam LED module. It's just such a striking feature at night, and it really completes the overall look of the NX. Now moving on to the sides, we can see that there's still a lot of styling elements, but overall it's definitely a lot more toned down, and it's just a lot cleaner compared to the previous generation. I really like this line in the quarter panel that leads directly into the NX taillights. In a world where auto manufacturers are slapping a light bar behind every car, I have to say, Lexus did a fantastic job making the taillights of the NX look tastefully unique. I'm also a big fan of how the Lexus is now spelled out, as opposed to just a regular badge. Honestly, to me, the back of the NX is very close to perfection. The only points taken off is because I really wish that the windshield wiper is tucked underneath the rear spoiler, kind of like how the RX has been for a couple of generations now. Otherwise, this color, when the sun hits it just right at this view, it's just such an astonishing looking SUV. Initially I was going for either Grecian water or cadmium orange, both of which are definitely more standout in regular day-to-day traffic, but I ended up going with the Nori Green Pearl, which is a lot more subtle, and you really have to be up close and personal with it in order to fully appreciate it. So what do you guys think? Did I make the right choice? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. And working our way back to the front, we'll start the interior impressions with the cargo area. Now this is the executive package, which does come fully loaded with a power back door and kick sensor. Opens up fairly fast. As well, there is power folding rear seats, which can be accessed from the back. They fold down relatively flat, which is really nice. We still have additional storage compartments down here, and the tonneau cover can be stored in its own little nest, which is nice. Now overall, I think this is the right amount of space. I haven't taken it on any long trips yet, but of all the similarly sized vehicles I've rented, I think this is going to be perfect for me. And I think this is going to be perfect for most couples and even up to a small family. Now moving on to the rear seats. To enter the NX, we now have a digital latch system, which is electronic. So the handle doesn't actually pull out, it's just a button that you press underneath. Now in terms of a battery failure, you do have a mechanical override switch. And on the inside is also just the button that you press, like so. And the mechanical override is just to pull it like a lever. So this is primarily done for safety. The blind spot monitoring system is still active once you've parked for 3 minutes, and it will not let you open the door if it's not safe to do so.
Watch for traffic.
So yeah, it's primarily for safety, but I actually really like the implementation because it feels very natural to just push it with my thumb and gently push the door open. So I really like the implementation of it. Now stepping into the NX back seats, I haven't spent much time in the back because I'm the primary driver, but this is really where you get the best views of the NX. You have the gorgeous Palomino wood interior on full display and this panoramic sunroof as well. Now space-wise, I'm 5'8", sitting behind myself, and I still have a fantastic amount of legroom. And headroom is pretty good as well. Now these seats do have a slightly reclined position, so it'll help with the headspace a little bit. You also have rear vents, heated seats in the back, and you also have two USB-C chargers in the back and a regular 12-volt port. Now one thing that bugs me with the NX is the rear door closing sound. I don't know how well that's coming across, but it just sounds a bit hollow and honestly a little cheap. Now thankfully the front is a stark contrast where it sounds really solid and really satisfying. That sounds really good. I love it. And now on the inside, we're greeted with this new generation Lexus steering wheel. I really like the look and feel of this new steering wheel. It's really nice. And the executive package does come with the heads-up display, which is accompanied by these touch capacitive buttons. So the way that these work is that the buttons are touch capacitive, so they'll sense my fingers as I place it on the buttons, and the functions will start lighting up in the heads-up display. Now you see that the volume buttons are labeled permanently, but not the functions on the left, because if I press this bottom switch here, it would actually flip the page and I get 4 additional functions on these pads. The primary page here, so for cruise control settings, and then here for the track seek and the call settings, these primary page functions cannot be changed, but the back functions can be changed. So on the left hand side, I have it set up to fan auto, fan off, and I can also change my temperature settings here. So this, I absolutely love this setup because this has come in handy in so many situations. Now you can customize the two sides individually, but that does not mean that you can have any function anywhere because they're locked into categories. So say for example on the left hand side, these are mostly audio controls and all your climate controls. And honestly, these are all convenient. I would love to have all of these, but you only have 4 slots available on the left hand side. And on the right hand side, you'll see that there's actually not a whole lot of customization options to begin with. And the biggest reason for that is actually when you're on cruise control, most of the functions, the back page on the right hand side is actually locked out. So let me demonstrate that. If I go to drive and I go into cruise control, so now if I try to flip the page, you'll see that it doesn't let me. So honestly, on the right hand side, for the most part, you're probably going to be locked into your cruise settings. And when you're not using your cruise settings, then you will have the back page available. But so I still kind of wish that there's more customization options available on the right hand side. One important thing to note is that the buttons on the side, so the unlabeled buttons essentially, these are not active by default. So let me demonstrate that. So if my temperature right now is 24, so if I don't touch it, they're actually not active. So if I just press down, it's still 24, press down, still 24. So I would actually have to wake up the buttons and then they will actually register to my press. But the volume buttons and the cruise control buttons, because they're labeled permanently, these are active the entire time. So to prove that, right now my volume is 0. So I'll let go and I'll just give it a quick press. It goes to 1. Quick press, goes to 2. And I honestly think this is pretty clever because, I mean, volume, these are probably the most frequently used functions. And your cruise control, like setting, like actually turning on cruise, these are probably your most commonly used functions as well. Otherwise, the heads-up display itself works really well. Now, one thing to note is that only the Lexus native navigation system will show turn-by-turn instructions right in the heads-up display, which is really nice and really convenient. But you don't get that with Google Maps in Android Auto or Apple CarPlay. Now, hopefully they can integrate that in the future, but I suspect they did it for a reason, kind of as an incentive to keep you subscribed to the Lexus system. Now, the heads-up display position can be adjusted, and they are tied to your driver profiles here on the side. Now, you also do have the Mark Levinson speaker grills and this open pore wood trim, which is really gorgeous. Now, this trim actually lights up at night, along with the footwells and some parts of the center console as part of the ambient lighting package. Now, I will be doing a separate night drive review, so if you're interested in that, make sure to subscribe and stay tuned. Now, taking on the literal center stage, we have the brand new generation Lexus Infotainment. It's very responsive and easy to use, just like any smartphone, and it does support wireless Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. Now, some items can get buried pretty deep in the menu, but overall, I think the structure is fairly intuitive to navigate through. Now, the screen itself is excellent. It gets bright enough during the day, and I've never had any issues with glare. And at night, it sets it to the dark theme and it automatically dims it. So while you can turn off the display, I've never actually felt the need to do so. Now, you do have all your climate controls up here, and they're fixed, so you don't have to dig through any menus to find them. And again, most of these can be put on your steering switches. Now, this camera button down here brings up the 360-degree view. I've never found the rotating egg to be helpful, so I usually just put it in reverse. That gives you the bird's eye view and the back view. Or if I were to put it in drive and then I press the camera button, that brings up the bird's eye and the front view. Now, if I were to press the camera button again, that brings up the cornering view. So if I rotate my steering wheel to the right, you'll see that it's now showing the right a little more. This is actually really helpful when you're in tight spaces. I'm honestly completely obsessed with the fact that this camera makes your vehicle go invisible while the wheels are still spinning. And it even draws out the area underneath your car. Honestly, this is a very, very cool feature. I love it. And the last button here with the steering wheel and the P on it, that is for the automatic park. So the NX can automatically park itself, whether front in, back in, or in parallel. Now, in my limited testing, it actually works fairly well. Let me know in the comments below if you guys are interested in a separate video dedicated to demoing the self-park capability. We also have the drive mode selector, more USB ports up front, and the wireless charging pad. Now this does come with the executive package, but honestly I'd rather not have it because the USB-C just charges so much faster and also generates less heat. Now this does open up for additional storage space underneath. And last but not least, we have the digital rear view mirror. I have gotten completely used to using this over the traditional one. It just gives you a noticeably wider view, and at night it automatically dims and it adjusts the exposure of the surrounding. So you just see more things more clearly with this. The only complaint is that sometimes with the sunroof open, you do get a little bit of glare, but it's not too big of a deal. Now, one quick note on what's actually new for the 2024 model. There are some very minor structural changes to improve handling and stability, but really visually, this piece is the only change. So the glove box cover now matches the rest of the interior theme. It's a small change, but honestly, it's a really nice touch. I love it. And that wraps it up for the interior impressions. So let's take it out on the road and see how it drives. All right, now starting to drive in this parking lot, right off the bat, we are treated to the sweet sound of pure silence. Like, it is honestly amazing that at low speeds, when this car is in the EV mode and it's just using the electric motors, it is amazing how quiet this car really is. And even as you pick up speed, like when the engine kicks in, it is barely noticeable. You can hardly tell when the engine has kicked in. And to be honest, it's quite astonishing just how well Toyota and Lexus has perfected this powertrain in terms of smoothness and also in terms of fuel economy. About 3,000 kilometers in, I'm averaging about 5.5 liters per 100 kilometers, which is fantastic for a vehicle of this size. And that's not to say that this is just efficient, but like really slow and boring. No, it does 0 to 60 in 7 seconds, which sounds okay, reasonable, again, for a vehicle of this size, but it's a hybrid drivetrain and it's got the bigger electric motor from the RX. So actually starting off the line from 0, it feels pretty punchy. And even at highway speeds, it's got more than enough passing power. Like, I think this has more than adequate power, practical power for a lot of regular drivers. One thing that I have to say though, I really was expecting a softer ride. Like, it's not so bad on the highway, but in the city where there's more uneven roads and potholes, I'm feeling those roads and potholes a little more than I would have liked. And I think the biggest reason is probably due to the 20-inch wheels that this comes standard with. So I actually jumped the gun on my winter setup, so I got my 18-inch Braylons. I'm actually really looking forward to that. I think they'll look great, so stay tuned for that. I'm hoping that the 18-inch is gonna feel, hoping that they'll be a bit softer ride. So the NX does come with a complete package of safety features, and I've enjoyed using most of them, with a few exceptions. So the first one I've already turned off is lane departure alert. This is when, mostly in city driving, this is when you're above 50 kilometers an hour, and if you cross the traffic lines, it's gonna steer you back into the lane gently. Again, it's mostly for city driving, and I find it kind of annoying sometimes. And on the highway, when you engage the adaptive cruise control, you already have lane keeping assist, where it keeps you pretty centered in the lane. So I honestly don't find it necessary, so I've just turned it off. And the other one that I'm on the verge of turning off is front cross traffic alert. So if I'm ever the first car at a red light and there's a lot of crossing traffic in front of me, it's just gonna keep giving me an alert, even after I've toned down its sensitivity. And the most annoying thing about that is when it gives me an alert, it will show up on the heads-up display, and it actually locks me out of the heads-up display for a split second. So I'm on the verge of turning off a front cross traffic alert. Now the other thing is proactive driving assist. I know some people don't like it. I quite enjoy it. So this is when the car is monitoring another car in front of you, and if you're getting too close as you approach the vehicle, it will it'll slow you down gently, but you do have to apply the brakes yourself to kind of bring you to a complete stop. It'll probably slow you down to about like 10 kilometers an hour. I like the added extra layer of safety aspect. There are some nuisance scenarios, like if another car gets a little too close to your lane and for a split second, it will brake for a split second. So like right now, I'm not applying the brakes, it's braking for me. And as that car begins to move, they will stop the braking. So I do like the extra layer of safety, and the nuisance scenarios hasn't happened too often. So I'm actually perfectly fine keeping the proactive driving assist on. Hands down, one of the best features in this car has to be its adaptive cruise control. It just takes so much of the chore out of the driving in the city and on the highway. So I can set it with my right hand here, and I can set the following distance, the speed, and canceling. Now, the lane keeping assist does a fantastic job of keeping you centered in the lane, and the entire steering wheel is capacitive touch, so you don't have to like grab one particular area. You really just have to rest your fingers on the steering wheel, and the car will just keep going on and on its own. And what's amazing is, particularly in stop and go traffic, this car will bring you to a complete stop, and all you have to do is on this heads-up display, it'll show that it's waiting, and you just have to use the capacitive touch buttons to press resume, or you can give the accelerator pedal a gentle tap, and the car will resume on its own, and it accelerates and brakes very gently. That's also customizable as well. This also does have a lane change assist, although it's not the smoothest thing in the world, and I'll probably still be doing the majority of my own lane changes. Now, another great thing with this is that it does have auto curve speed reduction. So if it detects that it's following along a curve, it will slow itself down. Now, I am getting a little bit of road noise, and again, I'm probably going to attribute that to the 20-inch run flats. So hopefully my winter setup with the 18-inch Michelin X-Ice is going to be a little quieter, hopefully, and probably a little softer ride as well. But other than that, like, I'm really not getting a whole lot of wind noise. Lexus has really done a good job isolating this cabin. And I know some people just cannot get over the fact that the NX is now built on the same platform and same assembly line as the RAV4, but they really shouldn't write off the NX because it's got almost double the amount of structural adhesives compared to the RAV4, and it's using high expansion foam roughly beneath my feet and beneath my seat, and it heavily utilizes laser screw welding and laser pinning technology. In simple terms, all that is to say is that the construction method of the NX and the RAV4 is quite a bit different, and that allows the NX to have a much quieter ride, have much better dynamics than the RAV4. And honestly, the noise becomes even less of a problem when you factor in the Mark Levinson sound system. I mean, these speakers just sound extremely good, even when it's really loud. So in most other systems, when you've cranked the bass and the volume really high, it just sounds muddy, and it almost hurts your head when you're listening to it. But not in this car. Like, at any volume, at any bass level, it is crisp, it is clear for any type of music. It honestly makes driving this such a joy on a day-to-day commute. So some closing thoughts on the NX after owning it for more than a month. My biggest disappointment actually is just that, again, I was really hoping that the ride quality is softer, and that this is a very front passenger focused car. Like, you can tell that from the door closing sound in the back, with the placement of the high expansion foam. Like, generally speaking, it's a more luxurious experience in the front compared to the back. And some of the tech features, like the safety features, are on the annoying side, so I felt like I had to turn that off. But other than that, like, even with these capacitive steering switches, I've honestly really enjoyed using this. The exterior is done extremely well. This is a fantastic looking SUV, and the interior is done really well as well. It's not as crafted, it's not as special as the previous generation, I would say, but they've done a good job modernizing it and making it functional. And it's doing all of this while pulling 5.5 liters per 100 kilometers. Like, honestly, that is amazing. This is just such a well-rounded, such a complete package of a vehicle. And against its rivals, yes, it may not be the sportiest. Yes, it may not have the latest, most fancy tech features. But if you have ever gawked at gas prices, you should really consider this car. And if reliability is anywhere in your top 5 requirements, this car almost becomes a no-brainer. Like, responsible luxury should be an oxymoron, but not with this car. And with that wraps up my owner's review of the NX Hybrid. Stay tuned for the night drive review if you're interested in that. Otherwise, thank you for watching, and until next time.